In this tutorial, we're going to cover placing a texture on a polygon plane inside of Maya. I'm starting out in Photoshop with a JPEG image, and it's got a white background on it that I'll be able to deal with once I get it inside of Maya, so I don't really need to edit it here. This is part of the demonstration so you can see that you have the option to scale, rotate, and move textures on a piece of geometry in Maya. I've determined that the proportion I'd like this to be is 6.5 units wide by 5 units high. I'm now going to go into Maya, and I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to go to Create Polygon Primitives. I'm going to go to Plane, and I'm setting the width for the 6.5, the height for 5, and I've chosen either the X or Z axis so that when I click, it puts it vertical, so that I can put this on the wall of my interior when it's done. I'm going to place it in the center of the viewport by holding X on the keyboard and snapping it to the middle of my grid. I'll now hit F on the keyboard. I'm going to start by placing a new texture on the surface of this polygon. I'll right-click, choose Assign New Material, Arnold, AI Standard Surface. The attribute will appear on the right-hand side. I'll first give it a name. I'm going to go down to Base, Color, and I'm going to follow that slide bar over to the checkerboard pattern. I'll click on it. I'll click on File, and I'll select the texture I want to apply. And it'll probably come in distorted, or you may not see it at all. So the next thing I need to do is select my geometry. And I'm going to hit W. I want to see which vertex is perpendicular to the surface with the texture on it. So for me, in this particular instant, it's the X, the red. And now I'm going to hold down the space bar, and I'm going to go to UV, Planar, and I'm going to go to the attributes. And planar means that we've got 3 options for surfaces, the X, Y, and the Z. So the axis that's perpendicular to the surface would be the X. I'll select it, and I'll hit Apply. Now, I want this to be larger to fill in the actual geometry, not the white that is part of the background of the original file. So I'm going to right-click, go to Object Mode, and I'm going to go to the channel box. Now we're going to add another tool to our shelf to do this. I'm going to hold down Command-Shift, UV, and I'm going to go to UV Editor at the very top. You'll see a green box with a checkerboard in it. When I click on that, with my geometry selected, the image appears inside the UV Editor. And if I want to manipulate that on the surface of my geometry, I'll right-click in the image, and I'll choose UV Shell at like 10 o'clock. Now, when I put my cursor over it, it has a red border and a bit of a red mesh. If I click on it, I've now selected it. And I can use W-E-N-R on the keyboard to transform the shell for this piece of geometry. I'm going to hit R on the keyboard, and I'm going to start by scaling it up. And then if I needed to, I could change the width of it. And in this instance, maybe I want to get rid of the red border around that piece of art. And maybe I can center it. So rather than go into this in any detail, just by using those 3 functions, you can see now how much control you have over the texture on that given surface.